You're listening to Inside Commerce, a weekly e-commerce strategy, technology and CX-focused podcast hosted by experienced digital consultants and re-platform specialists James Gedd and Paul Rogers. Get insights into e-commerce strategy, leading brands, hear from industry thought leaders and leading tech vendors with practical advice to help you improve your online CX. Thanks for tuning in. This is our biannual key vendor strategy update podcast. So that's a nice chunky title for you. So every 6 months, we sit down with the senior leadership teams at key vendors. So these are the vendors that are dominant in UK, EU, North American market. In terms of the vendors that we see coming up and most in projects, the vendors that we see most people migrating to or working with. And this is a chance for you to hear directly from their leadership teams, to hear how they are seeing the market, how that is influencing their business strategy, their go-to-market, and also their product evolution aligned with those trends. What are some of the key product capabilities that have been released and why, and what does it mean for e-commerce teams? So really good opportunity for you to hear directly from the people that are shaping the strategy in the vendor market. Contact details for all of the vendors and the people who are on the episode are on our landing page. So if you want to reach out and you want to ask more questions, or you want to challenge anything or probe further, or look at how the platform might suit different use cases, please do reach out and connect with them directly. And if you've got any questions about the wider vendor landscape and where Paul and myself are seeing this evolve, then do reach out via LinkedIn or via email. We'd always be happy to have a chat. Hope you enjoy and find this useful. Let's look at another popular e-com platform that's got some really impressive brands in its roster, and that's Remarkable Commerce. So welcome back to Brad. Nice to see you again, sir.
Hey, James. How you doing?
I'm very good, thanks. Quite a few people listening will have heard your beautiful voice before talking about Remarkable and your regular updates. But for those who don't know you or Remarkable, do you want to give a bit of an elevator pitch for who you guys are and what you do?
Yeah, sure. So Remarkable are a development agency based here in Nottingham. We are both an agency and an e-com platform provider. We kind of frame ourselves really as a solution provider. So we deliver services within our just shy of 100 people here in Nottingham. Very typical sort of development services across a range of different technologies. But our bread and butter really is developing our own e-com platform, and we have a wider ecosystem of technologies, a warehouse system and middleware and other things as well. So we're a bit of a hybrid, really, a bit of a unique beast in that a platform and technology provider with 100 people doing dev services as well. That's us.
Thanks. And this is one of the reasons I love doing these episodes, because people need to understand the different models and the different benefits of those models out there. So I appreciate you taking the time. So let's get cracking. So the first question on this update is, how have you and Remarkable seen the platform market evolve in 2025, and what are the big tech trends that's led you to focus on?
Yeah, the platform market is still growing, I would say, but perhaps slightly at a different pace than it has been over the last few years. I think we've seen, broadly speaking, a slowdown in the number of sort of e-com platforms coming into the UK market itself. There are other territories around the world that are evolving quite well and at pace, but the UK perhaps has seen a slight slowdown. But I see that really as the market starting to sort of mature a little bit. One thing I've noticed is replatforming itself was a very popular sort of activity between, I'd say, 2015 through to sort of maybe 2023-ish. Obviously, COVID really sort of ramped that up. But by 2024, I'd say most e-com platforms started to lean into a specific narrative, whether that was B2B or being enterprise ready, or whether it was the headless piece. And I think each of these platforms over the last 2 to 3 years has really sort of redefined that messaging and found a lane for themselves. So that's how I viewed the platform market evolving, especially into this year. We've then seen, I guess, a few new trends coming in. So obviously the AI piece started year before, but this year has really started to ramp. And I see that as the AI driven mindset being a very popular trend in the ecom world generally, but also really in the platform world. And the other piece is around flexibility. I think that's a massive trend that's become more popularized over the last 11, 12 months, really. And also maybe back to the whole all-in-one tool set. I don't know if you've seen this, James, as a sort of trend, but I've started to notice not just the sort of merging and acquisition of tools across our ecosystem, but the all-in-one tool set and trend has started to become a little bit more popularized, especially in recent months. And then the things we've been focusing on in terms of trends. So yeah, that AI stuff is obviously hugely important. We built some proprietary technologies using particular models and LLMs. So there's a visual outfit builder that's concept at the moment. We built AI-driven catwalk videos and model images, and various other things on the front end. But we've also been quite heavily focused in the admin as well. And I think that's one of our common approaches that we've had for the last 25 years in comparison to other platforms, perhaps, where we innovate not just front end, also back end quite heavily as well. So AI-driven agents within the admin, creating reports, creating suggestions, automating population of categories and promotions, enabling and disabling certain things fully autonomously. That's been a sort of real capability that we've started to add in over the last 12 months. And on the back of that, loads of personalization stuff as well. So all in the same wheelhouse, but that's how I've seen it evolve. And that's what we've been focused on for the last 12 months.
Yeah, interesting point you said about all-in-one. There's I find the changes in the third, I guess I'm calling it the third-party tooling ecosystem, which is linked into all of the platforms like yourselves, is you had a massive fragmentation where it was lots of niche specialist tools, and then building interoperability between them to enable data exchanges to drive automation. And then a reconsolidation, like you're saying, where certain vendors have emerged where they are instead of doing one thing or two things, they're doing 4 or 5 and they're bolting on. But equally, I've seen a couple of people divest capabilities and feature sets out of their tools, probably in reaction to that. It's really hard if you don't have the deep developer pocket to maintain all those sub-products effectively. So yeah, it's quite interesting to see that space changing over time.
Yeah, and this to that point, there are things that we've learned away from. CRM is the one that comes to mind for whatever reason, that we've kind of really felt as a module within our platform isn't a strong suit and isn't really part of where we want to go. And because of the sort of capabilities of other tools in the market becoming stronger and more rounded as tool sets, we felt that was one that we'd lean away from. So there's things definitely, to your point, that we've retracted from slightly, just because of that, not just the innovation pace and the investment in it, but also just because of the, I guess, aberration really of a lot of these solutions, and what they're doing is really cool. So yeah.
But this is why these updates for me are really important for everyone to listen into, because to understand the areas that the technology companies are focusing on and why, but how they're making the platform open and interoperable with specialists in other areas so that there's no disadvantage to being able to use those functionalities. It's such an important, because nothing stays the same forever. Like anything's changing all the time. But that kind of, thank you for that. It's really useful, overview of how you're seeing the market. How is that impacting your strategic focus and strategic direction? Because I know you've got a strong heritage in kind of fashion apparel area. You've got some big brands doing that, and you teased out some of that new capability around outfit builders. Are you narrowing down on that type of business, or have you moved into other verticals and business types because you're seeing things evolving?
Yeah, good question. So there's 3 sort of big pieces, if I think about it. 3 big things that are shaping our current business strategy. So the first thing is the market of replatforming is changing. And the second thing is where there are gaps and opportunity for us as a technology solution provider. And then lastly, where we can offer most benefit. So then if I think of each of those three things individually, so the first one, the market of replatforming and how that's changed over the last five years or so, it has hugely changed. I think certain platforms, if we look at the Adobe Magento world, I think that world has started to slow down and the adoption of that has started to slow. And there's still plenty of retailers in that world, but the adoption of it has certainly changed. There are some other platforms that have really much, almost fizzled out entirely over the last few years in particular. There's some really big players as well that have started to see a slowdown. So I think that's changed the market. Also the sort of that consolidation I was talking about of the tech stack, I think that has changed the replatforming world as well. And the other thing I'd say is that brands and retailers, in my opinion, are much better at defining like business objective, where in the past, perhaps with replatforming was very generalized sort of project goal, and it was quite loose in terms of what it was trying to achieve. KPIs and metrics were quite loose. But I feel businesses nowadays are a lot more better defining what their objectives are for a piece of work or a project, especially in the development world. And so that's meant that replatforming is perhaps as viewed more risky, or there are just other alternatives to a large project. So that's the first thing. I think the replatforming market has changed. That's shaping what we do, and how we come to market. The second thing is around that sort of market opportunity and the gap. So for me, the gap and Remarkable is also outside of the ecom team. So I'm thinking like IT, marketing, stores and ops teams, all those teams outside of e-commerce. There's opportunity there for us where we can then help them with technology solutions that are not as atypical in the platform world. So, warehouse, store fulfillment pieces, working with POS closely, working in middleware, so connecting systems outside of the typical e-com world, connecting different systems together. That type of work really is where I've seen opportunity for us. So that's changed us massively this year. And retailers themselves, this year has been pretty crap for many retailers trading wise. So they had to look at the opportunities outside of the typical strategy. Most retailers are looking at international, they're looking at marketplaces, they're looking at other territories and other markets to get into. And that has meant really that the replatforming and the typical work that we've done for the last 25 years has evolved slightly. And then that leads into the third thing, which is where we can offer the most benefit. And as a dev house, with just under 100 people, our benefit and what we can offer is that custom world. So, and that goes on to other parts of the ecosystem, not just Remarkable platform and technology, but doing Shopify, really complex, advanced Shopify development. We built a really powerful finance reconciliation module that a handful of our bigger clients are now using that does automated reconciliation between your order files and your payment records across every channel, and then gives you real deep insight into where the challenges are, where reconciliation perhaps is not as it should be. So for finance teams, again, a new team that we're starting to work with, just offering that sort of bespoke type of solution for them. So yeah, all those things is what's been shaping us this year. And it's very much different as a direction of travel versus the last 25 years, for sure.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because it's that blend of you obviously continuously have a product roadmap that you're involved with, and we'll touch on the big developments of that in a second. But it's becoming much more strategic. And I think this is where the future is in the e-com market, is whether you are a technology vendor or a service delivery agency, or both in your case, what people want is strategic support and alignment, and people who can help guide and help them make better decisions rather than just do development for them.
Yeah. And I've always seen that as a massive USP of Remarkable of being that challenger. You know, we've always been great at offering suggestions, ideas, concepts, putting a list of 100 project ideas on a table, you know, proactively, not just reactive. We've always been good at that, but more than that, it's actually giving that sort of advice and that guidance, like you say, and support to not just your ecom team, but other teams in the business as well. So yeah, strategically, it's, that's what retailers want, I feel.
Let's put more of a product lens on this. You teased out a few earlier. Let's get into a little bit more detail. So do you want to talk us through some of the key releases from the this latter part of 2025 that have landed well with merchants and what they mean for the merchants?
Yeah, sure. So something I mentioned on the summer podcast was about our site search module, and we had a real sort of large overhaul of that earlier in the year. Some of our bigger clients actually reverted away from their enterprise grade solutions that they were using, paying, you know, fairly chunky money for, and instead reverted to our inbuilt native capability for site search, because the set of features within that natively were as strong as those enterprise grade technologies. And certainly far beyond the native sort of search settings that you have in other platforms. So that was earlier in the year, and that's landed well throughout the last sort of quarter or two. Many of our clients that either were using externals or perhaps ones that just weren't using search to the best of its capabilities now are. And we're sort of really put a lot of time into site search. And we still integrate with some really, really impressive site search tools on the market. You know, we have really good partnerships with them as well, really good integrations. But yeah, that overhaul of the search module was something that's landed well, and has saved retailers money, of course. And it's give them more power and control that's native as well. So that's one thing. As I said earlier, this one of the big products and developments that we've been working on this year is in that middleware world. And we had a handful of clients earlier this year, prospects come to us and say, we're trading on other solutions like other channels like John Lewis or Debenhams or whatever it is. And currently that integration is very manual, or we're using an integration that's very rigid. And so we're looking for something that is custom built, but also saves us time, saves us money, saves us effort. So we've started to productize our middleware solutions, which means that there are many of these channels and these marketplaces that we now natively integrate either back into Remarkable or back into other solutions like Shopify and other ERPs as well. So that middleware piece is productized, and that's come along really well. A few other things in the integration world. So we now have native integration with ASOS, Freeman's, Matalan, TikTok. Those ones have come in this year, led by some of our bigger clients. And they're seeing really good success with them. And then two other things come to mind. So one of our other clients, we've built a custom loyalty program, which is a loyalty scheme, point-based loyalty scheme, but is very much well-defined in the custom world. So they looked at all of the off-the-shelf solutions on loyalty and found use cases for each of them, but struggled to really find one that did everything that they needed to. So we built something custom, and that's been really powerful for that particular merchant. And that's then going to feed into marketplaces and various other projects that are in that pipeline. And the last thing that was done just over summer, and it has become really popular for a handful of merchants that we have, is embedded insurance. And we have a few clients already using this, a few already getting close to finishing it and pushing it live, and several prospects that we're talking to about it. Also outside of the Remarkable ecosystem, retails on other platforms or with custom builds or whatever it is. But we are able, as a development house, to embed insurance into a retailer's site. And there are loads of different benefits of that in terms of commercially, in terms of that marketing messaging, in terms of sort of ongoing sort of loyalty and customer value. There are loads of benefits. But yeah, embedded insurance, I think I did mention it in the summer episode, but it's come through really well and is part of a lot of conversations at the moment. So yeah, quite a varied roadmap and things that we've been working on. But yeah, it's been a fun few months.
Just what I love chatting to you about, Michael, because you have some really interesting capabilities in the platform that are not standard in other platforms at all, and don't exist as pre-existing modules, and therefore always need some sort of like either custom middleware to connect it, or finding a third party app and then like, you know, extending it. So I think that's something that people should find of interest, is these kind of like niche use cases that you have.
Yeah, we're certainly for the maybe not for the weirdos, but we're for the people who don't fit that off the shelf model and perhaps need something that's slightly more unique to them and niche, which is a good description. Yeah. That's good.
Yeah, I don't mean niche in a bad way, because I think we all know every project you get into, probably 90% is standard with some customization, extension, and some quirkiness. And then you get the 10% of, well, we do things like this, or we have this eclectic finance company we need to integrate with, or we've got this strange user journey for upselling warranties. And then it's all these kind of like nichings where suddenly having a pre-baked solution that does 90% of it out of the box is amazing.
It's true. Yeah, it's true. And I think as the UK market at least evolves, I think we are going to see, you know, more differentiation, and retailers are really looking at not just the product they sell, but the services they offer and the markets they want to go into, and the marketing that they want to do. I think, you know, we're going to see quite an evolution, I feel, over the next few years at least, in all those things, which, and the backbone of it is technology. And I think for retailers needing a little bit more agility and speed, but also really flexibility in the technology, perhaps that sort of off-the-shelf mindset and the SaaS mindset, like you said, gets you to 90%, but there's always that percentage that is different. And I think that percentage will perhaps change in the coming years for sure.
Thanks as always. And for anyone whose interest has been piqued, they want to either bragging more on the platform, or specific capabilities, or even test out how it might work with particular use cases you got. His contact details are on our landing page, so do go there, or you can reach directly out to him on LinkedIn, whatever you want to do. So look, Brad, really appreciate you as always taking the time to join us.
Nice one, James. Appreciate it. Speak soon.
Okay, so now let's talk to Centra. Centra have been on a podcast many times. I always enjoyed chatting to Martin, who was CEO, is now pivoted it into a product leadership, product strategy role. So warm welcome back, Martin.
Thank you so much. Nice to be back.
Yeah, really looking forward to it. I always love seeing and hearing how Centra is evolving in the market. So quite a few people have known you previously as like the co-founder and CEO. You've kind of pivoted roles. Do you want to give people a bit of a flavor for where you're now focused within Centra?
Yeah, absolutely. So my own role, I've changed to focus only on the product part of the company. So essentially, I've had the CPO role before as well as co-founder and CEO, but now focusing only on the product part more exclusively. I think there's so much happening when it comes to the product space right now, and it's changing. So I'm super excited about taking a leading role in Centra's product direction and product development.
Yeah, I think the chief product officer is a fascinating role as well. And now we're going to come on to this, but let's face it, the last 12 months have been an absolute like carnage of acceleration of AI capability. product strategy behind that is critical to get control. So let's get into the questions then. So the first one is, I'd love your view on how you and Centra have seen the platform market evolve in 2025, and like what are the key trends that you're seeing that are driving how platforms are evolving.
I think it's going to be hard to speak about the past year trends without speaking about generative AI, right? I think if we look back, 2 years ago when generative AI actually started coming out, then it was a bit of chaotic times, right? And I think we saw platforms releasing a lot of bad functionality, to be honest. Not only e-commerce platform, but software in general started releasing those co-pilot style chatbots that were quite bad. It was like, could you ask what the sales were yesterday? Yes. Could you trust the answer? Absolutely not. Could you ask it to generate the product photo? Yes. How many fingers would the model have? You don't know. Maybe 5, maybe 6. And I think what has happened now in 2025 is really, okay, now the world has matured around this new technology. And I think it's matured in a way that is really interesting. The first thing to understand is, of course, that the best-in-class AI models that power innovation today, that they are developed by companies such as Google and OpenAI, okay? And they are available for anyone to use. And I think you might hear, especially a year ago, so you heard people say like, well, that's just a ChatGPT wrapper. Someone releases an app and it's like just a ChatGPT wrapper, okay? And that may be true, right? That might be true to some extent, that they are quite simple functionality as using these models. But the truth is it delivers tremendous innovation value. So like if you're a one-person startup or a large established player, you have access to the exact same AI models today. There's no difference. That means your own R&D spend does not matter because everyone is using the exact same AI models developed by the companies such as Google and OpenAI. So I think during the initial hype, maybe there was a focus on, how much companies would invest in their own R&D and so on in AI models. But now there's really a lot of focus on what features to deliver. And we see a lot of innovation happening with really small players. Like we have a lot of like these app startups and yes, it's a sort of a ChatGPT wrapper in a way, right? They're using an existing model to deliver some value, but they do really cool stuff. This includes areas such as text generation, media generation, semantic search, of course, really cool stuff. So at Centra, we do two things. One is we focus on using AI to deliver maximum value. And again, we're of course not developing our own GPT-style models. Under the hood, it's the big models developed by the tech giants. But we focus on bringing these values, bringing the value out of using these models. So we focus on stuff that really improves e-com, stuff like copywriting, image editing, those type of things. The other thing we do is we actually try to make sure we're sort of open API type of approach. We really want to stay open to all of those players that come up with new use cases for these models and bring them in. So I think if I were to just name one trend for a year, it's, generative AI democratizing software development, and in a way now that really makes an impact, right?
Yeah, I think that's a nice way of positioning it, the democratization a bit. But it's easier for people who can't build their own models to use existing models to get good quality outputs that are more reliable. Although, I mean, there are still hallucinations. You still need human oversight, of course. But yeah, interested. And that links in nicely with my second wish, which is about strategic direction. The AI bit is inevitable. We'll probably come onto some more specific use cases when we talk about product piece in a bit. But where is Centra kind of turned its gaze? Is this about consolidation in existing markets? Is it about building out new models? I know that you've been strong in B2C fashion lifestyle and also in wholesale and B2B. Is it about additional verticals? Where is that strategic direction evolving?
This answer is going to be really boring, but because the honest truth is our strategy has not changed that much. So we come from the idea that we focus on fashion brands. So as you mentioned, like our core client is a brand that designs their own lines of clothes or shoes or whatever it may be, and sells it online or through wholesale channels, or most commonly both direct to consumer and wholesale. And our clients span, women's wear, men's wear, shoes, but it can also be a sports club selling merchandise, or it could be, upmarket, mid-market, luxury, but that's essentially clothing lines they're selling. So our business strategy, yes, we build an e-commerce software that is really good at selling clothes. That's like the strategy in a nutshell. And we're still doing that. We don't enter other verticals, we don't go very much up market, not very much down market. The strategy remains the same. So for us, it's actually more focused on execution. And then, of course, on staying true to, the type of clients we want to serve. So like when we, for example, implement the generative AI for, let's say product text translation. What we make sure is that our implementation of the generative AI is really good at just writing about clothes for an e-commerce context, right? And that's how it goes. And that spans everything, like how we focus in the PIM part of the product, the order management system part, and so on. So just focusing down really on this this type of brand that we want to serve.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And do you know what? It doesn't matter. Having a boring answer that's consistent, I think, really helps people understand where relevance is to them and their business.
I hope so. But it would be more fun if we had pivoted into, fresh groceries or something.
Cold chain supply. How about complex manufacturing for being interesting?
Yeah, exactly. Configurable manufacturing. Production planning.
Yes, you're catering for advanced plant machinery with millions of configurations now all of a sudden. Okay, that's cool. Now let's get on to the bit which I know is an area of your absolute passion, which is the product roadmap. Mm-hmm. Talked about Gen AI as, I guess, a strategic lens. Yeah. There's inevitably going to be some practical use case in there. But you want to talk us through some of the key things that happened in the last 6 months at Centra, whether this is new capabilities, enhancements of existing?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll talk about the few. I think there's a long list of features released, but I'll not talk through all of them, but rather deep dive into a few of them. I think we can start with the generative AI. So we're launching AI translations, and we start to get now good AI translations. And what I mean by that is AI translations that actually respect tone of voice, understand SEO, and so on. And there's still some way to go to make it really, really perfect. But I think we've reached a point where this is really good enough to be used live, and especially for long tail markets, be used instead of human translation services, basically. I think that's pretty exciting. And that, of course, changes that of course, has implications on the entire go-to-market strategy for a brand, right? Because if you can actually, serve the long tail markets with localized content, that opens up new types of business models, focusing on long tail markets that you couldn't do before. So I think that's really exciting. I think a bit of a bigger pivot for us has been, so Centra's background is as a headless e-commerce platform, meaning, no presentation layer. So we focus on the commerce backend, not on how the front end looks. We don't do themes or templates. And that's, of course, been very good for us now when agentic shopping is coming, because for us, the agentic shopping, that's just another interface, another head, so to speak, that we can attach. But we've also started moving a bit into actually the offering some storefront components on the D2C side. We're not becoming a web agency or anything along those lines, but we have released like a front-end kit. And what it's really about is making Centra more accessible to also types of brand and shortening the time to going live. So it's really offering a set of front-end components. Third thing maybe I would like to mention On B2B, so about half of the volumes through Centra are B2B sales, so wholesale sales. Wholesale is lagging behind D2C. Okay, it's like a more conservative business. B2B is more conservative. But we've released a lot of features to really encourage self-serve orders, meaning, not AI orders, meaning just that, not the phone order or physical order or email order, but just a, self-serve order. So a lot of features around that, faster ordering, improved collaboration workflows, a better checkout for B2B, and so on and so forth. So that's been a pretty interesting development. So those are maybe 3 highlights: generative AI translations, a D2C front-end kit, and acceleration of self-serve orders in wholesale digital adoption.
Yeah, I find the wholesale one interesting actually, because the lag is getting smaller.
Yeah.
And the expectation of B2B buyers is far higher, and their need for like native digital user journeys and experiences, it's accelerated massively in the last couple of years.
So it's a space where we see AI is going to come in eventually and make big changes in how the space works. But indeed, and what I think no one wants is like the old generation, like B2B portals, which it sort of looked like something out of your ERP system, where you sort of write commands to key in your B2B orders. That is dead, we think. What it is about is like a D2C quality e-commerce experience. We see our wholesale product has a good adoption on mobile. Really good. We've released a lot of mobile improvements, and you might ask, who is doing B2B purchasing on mobile? Why would you ever do that? You have a large screen in an office, right? But it turns out there are lots of independent store owners, and they are walking around in the store and doing replenishment, and they don't have any, machine learning driven auto replenishment tools. They just walk around with their cell phone and see what is low on stock, and they place a reorder, and that's how it works that's real life.
Yeah, exactly. The need to understand how people actually work in their day-to-day tasks rather than making assumptions is critical to that. That's really interesting. And with your future gaze on, those are the three really interesting areas. Are there any other big topics that are coming up soon in the roadmap where you are focused on? I mean, for example, I know you've been historically very strong in omnichannel, enabling omnichannel data flows for true, like ship from store, view store, stock, etc.
Continue to develop. So, I mean, as you mentioned, omnichannel has been like a core pillar of Centra for a long time. So, like everything, which is like all the fulfillment flows that are omnichannel essentially. So, click and collect, buy from buy in store, chip, what do you say? But buy in the store, chip from the online. I was about to say endless aisle, I think is endless aisle, I think is what we call it. Also the return flows, of course, and so on. We continue to evolve that, and it continues to be a strong part of the platform. We see what we're glad to see is more adaptation. We thought, when we developed this functionality, which is now several years ago since we released the core part of it, that this is really, really cool, and it especially for brands that have like maybe distributed inventory, a few flagship stores here and there, it's a really cool feature, but then we saw that adoption is not it's a bigger program to roll it out, so there's a change management involved with the stores, right? But now we see that is maturing, so we're quite excited about that. Continue to evolve that part of the product, indeed.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, the operational side, but a lot of the businesses I've worked with, when we're in like technical discovery and people talk about endless aisle, the big block always becomes operational capacity in stores to handle all of these flows. Because if you have a small store, trying to create space to allow collections and then returns, or all of a sudden it makes the retail space far more complex.
Yeah. Indeed, and what we think there is, we're going to see more dynamic routing. So it's like, maybe local stores can handle an omni flow, But, if the store has lower capacity, then you focus that really on just serving the local area. It's sort of more that, omnichannel fulfillment, unified fulfillment has a few different use cases, right? One is like the customer experience use case. The other is just, optimizing the use of inventory and shipping the inventory from, where there's the, lowest likelihood to sell out. But then you can sort of steer that over time. So maybe optimize in different directions.
Indeed. I mean, that's a whole discussion in itself, isn't it? We could spend hours talking about omnichannel complexities. But look, Martin, I really enjoyed it. I think that's going to be really useful for people hearing where you're headed, some of the key product drops. For those listening, if you want to find out more, or you want to get into more details on those areas, Martin is a fantastic person to chat about, has an insane amount of knowledge about the platform for obvious reasons. His contact details are on the landing page, so please do reach out.
Awesome.
Yeah, Martin, thanks so much for joining us again.
Thanks for having me, James.
And now let's turn our gaze to commerce. Commerce is a rebrand of BigCommerce and various other products in the portfolio, and we'll come on to what that means in a moment. And I'm really delighted to welcome two people from the leadership team. So let's go in turn. So Christina, do you want to start? For the people who haven't met you or don't know what you do at Commerce, do you want to explain what your role is?
Sure. So I lead our commerce product here in Europe. I started 6 years ago. Initially was based in Kiev office. Last year moved to London to be closer to the team. So today I'm going to represent anything related to product.
Amazing. I've known Christina for several years, and she is always a brilliant person to speak to if you want to get in-depth product knowledge. Very, very, very helpful indeed. And also, warm welcome back to Andrew. Andrew, you've been on previously, but for those who didn't listen to the previous episode, do you want to give people a flavour for your role as well?
Yeah, good. Thanks, James. Yeah, I'm Andrew Norman. I am responsible for commerce in EMEA, so I'm the general manager. I joined in February, so out of my probationary period now, which is good, and enjoying the business very much. So yeah, good to be back talking to you.
Excellent. Really appreciate you both taking time. So we've got two senior people who've got a lot of knowledge and expertise in the industry. So great people to listen to today. So let's get into the question. So the first one is, how have you seen at Commerce, have you seen the platform market evolving in 2025? Like, what are the key trends that you're seeing it impact there?
Yeah, I'll jump in. Obviously, I'll let Christina chip in on some things. I think a little bit, we touched on last time we met, actually, there's a little bit of sort of bifurcation in terms of B2B and B2C. And for those people listening, some businesses don't fit nicely into one kind of bucket. Let's say, it's a lot of businesses are B2B, B2C, or B2B2C. However, we still, on the B2B side, business to business, we still continue to see a lot of, I guess, what I would call an old money first generation purchase, meaning they're still moving from historically sort of manual or custom ways of doing things into their first, platform purchase. So that's a big growth area for us. We continue to invest in that from a product side, which I'll let Christina speak to later on. But I think in terms of customer behavior, we work really hard with customers to help them sort of build business cases. As you know, James, is trying to, sometimes when you're making that early investment in technology, you have a lot more transformation. You have a lot more work to do with the CFOs and the other parts of the business. So we do a lot of work with our stakeholders, within our customers to help them kind of focus as much on the why as well as the what, if that makes sense. So we continue to see a lot of growth in B2B. On the B2C side, we'll touch on this later on. I think the platform is one part of it, but we see a lot of people being much more considered in their re-platforming decision-making process. A lot of people are, making the existing purchases they've made or investments they've made. They're trying to make that work and trying to optimize the investments they've made. And when we do, work with prospective customers on re-platforming, there's definitely a lot more considered and a very diligent process, because this is, as people listening will know, that could be a second or third generation purchase, right? Where they're moving for the second or third time. So I think that's generally what we see in our world. without this being too much of a shameless plug for our wider proposition. But we also do see on the B2C side a lot more focus on agentic. And that's, I think, is particularly a big factor for why we decided to, reframe. It's more than a rebound in our mind. It's really a fundamental repositioning of the business and the assets that we have within the business. But coming back to the question, B2C, we see a lot more still desire to sell on multiple channels, multi-language, multi-market, and particularly on the agentic commerce, which I know we can have a whole separate conversation on what does agentic actually mean, because I think it's confusing, right? Agentic is just one of those phrases now that gets labeled, and I'm not entirely sure, people would understand what agentic actually means, right? Because it's so loosely things. So I think those are the key things that I've seen. I don't know, Christina, if you've got any other perspectives.
Yeah, this year is actually easy because previous years, nothing actually major was happening in e-commerce. So when you were looking into trends, they were not as clear as this year. So this AI bomb just landed, and this has been the main trend in terms of retailers asking very valid questions like, how can AI help me to sell more? How can it open up new channels for me? How can it help my team to operate more efficiently? So that definitely has been a trend through the whole year. But also what I've noticed is I am seeing way more customers choosing headless and composable versus what it was before. When we started doing headless in 2016, it was like something very fancy, not available to everybody. And only certain customers were choosing headless and actually building headless. Now it feels like it became more accessible to customers, and they like the idea of plugging in, plugging out to swap up like search or payments. So basically they like the flexibility of being able to bring in the best of breed solutions. And we can see more and more customers choosing that, even for B2B, where like historically it has been a niche where customers were caring more about the volumes and the sales experience than like the classic B2C shopping. But now B2B businesses are also moving towards like headless and composable. They want this nice websites, good shopper buyer experience. So this has been a trend too.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point. Actually, I've definitely noticed as well in the last couple of years in B2B conversations, there's far more thinking about UX in the client team, and it's not just the tech partner and the agency or the consultant talking about what user experience do you want to deliver and why. Because most B2B buyers now are online shoppers and they are demanding and expect.
I think that consumerization sort of does sort of bleed over into the marketplace. I think, into the business here, into the workplace. I think that's exactly right.
Yeah, it's excellent. Well, that leads nicely into the second question. Is obviously there's been a big announcements this year. The rebrand from BigCommerce to Commerce, because there is a wider portfolio of products. With Feedonomics, Macerift, etc. So I'd love to know how has that move to commerce impacted strategic direction and focus? Like where are you headed?
I think there's a few reasons. If it maybe just focus on the why. I think this has been a similar journey probably for other people listening, right? When you acquire companies and assets and then you become a multi-product company, there is a requirement to sort of reframe that conversation, and more importantly, to then really take advantage of the assets that you have within the business, right? So previously, I think the businesses were a little bit, I would say separate in a negative way, but we were sort of operating them a little bit independently. We were still, addressing multiple customers with the multiple products, but it wasn't as coherent and as sort of unified. And this is a classic thing. We've all seen it in the space. Many of the people in the platform community have been acquired, and you see how this picture kind of unfolds over time. So we took the decision. The rebrand was almost a byproduct, frankly, and I'll let Christina give some more color on this. The rebrand was almost a byproduct of it. The fundamental reason we have done this and wanted to do this was to really bring the products together. Because as you touched on in your last point, it's an overused phrase, solutions, right? But we're really trying to there's a very subtle move now to creating solutions for B2B and solutions for B2C. And they're different things. So yeah, it's about how do we provide solutions for B2B and B2C. So if you kind of look how that really breaks down or how that manifests, it's about, what are the products and services that we want to provide to B2B and B2C customers. And I guess in simple terms, there's kind of line items or components within those solutions. So it's about really reframing the conversation. So obviously BigCommerce, as you touched on, BigCommerce, Feedonomics and MakeSwift, you could say the components, but you'll also see us add more of our own products. We will sort of incorporate best of breed products as well in some form of white label or even resell models where it makes sense. So we're trying to curate solutions for our customers in the sort of B2B and B2C space. And so it makes sense, therefore, to kind of reframe how we position those in the market. So Commerce is the overarching, I guess, parent brand, and those component or those the products still remain. They're preserved. BigCommerce, Feedonomics, and the MakeSwift, they're still separate brands. We also do sell those brands separately. So, for example, a lot of Shopify customers use Feedonomics, and there are other things that we're exploring in the background. So it doesn't mean you have to take sort of all of our products or all of our solution. You can take components, but we all know that, we're interested in trying to solve, or customers are interested in trying to solve, problems in a more sort of coherent and a more holistic way. And so it made sense for us to do that. So what you'll see, without stealing Christina's thunder, you'll see us kind of use, you'll see us use more of the components of the products. So there are things within Feedonomics we'll use within BigCommerce and vice versa, right? And MakeSwift. So there are some really cool things that we're doing, which I think will really help accelerate our B2B customers and really help accelerate our B2C customers.
Well, that's a lovely segue into the third question, which is, I know you're a bit passionate, Christina, which is strategically, how has the product moved on? Last time we spoke was at the start of the year, or like maybe middle Q2, I think. And things move fast, and I think you alluded to at the start. God has Christ has like this year been about the agents, the AI, and I mean it's literally dominated conversation. So I'd love to hear on that and on other areas. What have been the key things that you've been working on releasing? What's landing for merchants that are getting merchants excited?
There is actually a lot, which makes me very, very happy. But overall, with the explosion of this AI bomb this year, like all the key pieces of commerce have not gone anywhere. Now we are just looking into them from a perspective of where AI can help people to actually operate better. So from a product standpoint, this year we've been investing in 5 core areas. So the most relevant one for Europe probably is international selling and everything related to international expansion. So this year, this has been one of the high priority items in our product roadmap. And we've been heavily investing into different localization capabilities, everything related to translations, including AI powered translations. So you will see more of that through 2026, where in 2025, we were building and incrementally releasing this. Early 2026, it's going to be like a fully functioning, fully released solution for everything related to translations and international selling, with AI plugged into it to help to speed up the expansion to different markets. Another area, it's everything related to storefront. So basically both, as we discussed, B2B and B2C retailers, they do care about how the shopper and buyer experience is going to look like. So we have released Catalyst 1.0, including MakeSwift with like dozens of new components. So what it means for brands, basically, we like to speak about this as if you're running a marathon, which is like, I don't know how many miles, but like 42 kilometers. So us running like the first 30 for you, and then you pick it up and convert the starting point that we're giving you into like your actual brand visual experience. We've also released shareable previews within MakeSwift, a lot of things that are helping marketers to plan the campaigns, promotional campaigns, visual experiences in advance and then go live. So that was critical for Black Friday. And within the product, we were making sure that we are giving retailers the tools they need to be successful during Black Friday. Third area would be everything related to multi-channel selling. So we have released Feedonomics Surface with Google and Meta available for free to all customers. So this is powered by Feedonomics. Now all the BigCommerce customers can list their products on Facebook and Meta, and Microsoft is coming next in just a couple of clicks. At the same time, within Feedonomics, we're also powering this agentic search experience where you can list your products to agentic channels. We've started beta with Perplexity. It's available in US first, and most of the AI platforms, they are starting from US first, but based on what we know, they are going to be expanding to Europe, starting from UK in Q1 and accepting customers from Europe to list their products to those channels as well. So like OpenAI, Copilot, Perplexity, everybody is looking into Europe in Q1. We've been also doing a lot of investments around B2B. So similar to what we did with Catalyst for B2C, we want B2B retailers to be able to create the same beautiful visual experiences. So we've released a reference implementation for Catalyst B2B. We have customers already live with that. B2B buying experience actually look beautiful with that. So it's not that old experience where people just land on a website to call somebody. So now it's like a fully functioning self-service for B2B buyers. We've also released CPQ for both sellers and buyers to speed up time to place a quote and basically to speed up faster time to cash for B2B retailers. And one of the big things we've been investing into this year within product for B2B, it's mostly relevant for app ecosystem, but also for any developers working on B2B projects. So we've unified API access and tokens. So you can now use the same account to make calls to both BigCommerce and B2B edition APIs, which has been a huge request from the market. So now it's like one single native product when it comes to building any integration or any implementation. And less sexy, but also very important, we call this internally brilliant basics, where it's like, you know, these tiny pieces of experience that kind of brings like the full picture together, but this is like small things which are less sexy for the market, but are very important for your daily operations. So we've released enterprise permissions through the API. We've built multi-shipping address at checkout. So basically giving people more and more tools they need for Black Friday sales. This also included bulk coupons, API, back ordering data. So a lot of things like that to make sure that like this holiday sale is going to go well. And AI. So AI, the way we were looking into this, it's kind of horizontally plugged into all those areas of investment. So it's powering international experience. It's helping you to design storefronts in Makeswift. It's helping you to process and enrich the data for third-party channels, including agentic search channels. But on a side note, like for AI specifically, we've released Storefront MCP beta. So this is basically a new type of API that allows any AI connection to plug into your data, your store data, and then power this agentic shopping experience on your website. So similar to what Amazon did with Rufus, where AI can help you to find products quicker, compare them, get more details on the product, and then quickly add it to cart and checkout. So we've released the initial set of tools. So now merchants can actually build their own AI shopper assistants and put them on a website. So we have this beta running with customers and partners now, and we will be making more investment in this space moving forward. We've also did the beta on Perplexity that I've already mentioned. So basically US customers can get their products discoverable in Perplexity and then purchased through Perplexity, where like merchant is just the merchant of record. You receive the order and then you process with fulfillment and shipping, but your products are actually bought outside of your storefront. And of course, data enrichment. So in this AI era, it's all about your data. So your data, you cannot just take the products the way they are on your storefront and just push them to agentic search channels, because the way the description and the keywords and everything is being written, it needs to match this natural conversation language so that your products will actually be searchable in those channels. So we've launched a data enrichment product within Feedonomics, where basically we help customers to optimize their products, naming, description, all the keywords before pushing them to channels like OpenAI or Perplexity or Copilot. So this has been big recently as well. So those 5 areas, we will continue those investments in 2026. We are already drafting the roadmap, and it's packed with investments in all of those areas. Exciting times.
Wow. That's an impressive ability to roll that off so smoothly. That's really interesting. I hadn't spotted about the AI assistant piece. You've given the example, how Rufus does it in the Amazon world. So that's really, really interesting, actually. But you're right. People want the basics, the fundamentals, the non-glamorous stuff, because that's what makes scores tick.
Yes.
But having toolkits within platforms where they don't need so many third parties additionally is beneficial, because I've seen consolidation. Yes, the open system so you can connect as many as you want is critical, but there's also that need to try and consolidate where you can for cost efficiency.
Yes. A lot of things like that is going to be evolving moving forward. Like everybody is looking for ways how you can get to the conversion faster. So it's also, we've started with B2C, but if you look into B2B use cases, they're even more critical, where it's like this huge purchase order with a lot of items. So how can we reduce time for the buyers to get to the order with the help of AI? And AI is great in processing files and emails and faxes. So there is a lot of potential in there as well. And we're going to be investing into this, obviously.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Thank you so much. These are the conversations where I happily spend hours grilling you on more details, but I'm not going to, because you both have big hidden lies. We will do a follow-up deep dive separately around some of the core product stuff, because that's a lot of it. But look, Andrew and Christina, thank you so much for coming on. Always enjoy these updates. For those listening, if you're interested in being piqued, you want to find more, both their contact details are on our landing page. Go there, do reach out via LinkedIn. They're both always happy and very, very great, very useful at giving you more details where you need it. So thank you, James.
Yeah, because that.
And now let's turn our gaze to Commerce Lane. I'm delighted to welcome back to the podcast CEO Filippo. Welcome again.
Hey, James. Thanks for having me again.
I always enjoy listening to you, and I know that you and the team are always incredibly busy thinking about the future, building out the tech roadmap. So really looking forward to it. So let's get straight into this. How have you and the business seen the platform market evolving in 2025? Like, what trends have you focused on?
Well, we are seeing, I think, what everyone is seeing, that agentic AI is taking over the shopping journey step by step, starting from the product discovery, where AI agents are recommending products on AI search engines or conversational engines like ChatGPT, Perplexity, and others. So starting from the product discovery to the checkout with the agentic commerce protocol, for example, that has been implemented, actually, launched by OpenAI and Stripe, with other partners joining from the payment ecosystem, Google with the A2A protocol and the AP2 protocol. So there are many protocols. I mean, not that many, but there are important and foundational protocols that have been delivered to support this new agentic commerce paradigm. And this is happening so fast, every day, every morning we wake up and we kind of read a new announcement and something that is happening in this space. So it's happening very, very fast. And so, yeah, I mean, as Commerce Layer, we have always built our company, our platform as an API first solution from day one. So, of course, we didn't anticipate anything that is happening today. We didn't predict any agentic AI or what is really, or how commerce is changing. But I would say that by following a very agnostic and open approach to everything that could eventually happen to the market, today we feel like we are accidentally a good solution for this new agentic world. So in terms of the product development, there is on one side, there is a potential disruption of the entire industry where agentic commerce could replace in a few years completely the traditional e-commerce, shopping journey. On the other side, if we look at Commerce Layer, if I look at what we have built in the past 10 years or so and what we are building now, there is a continuity. There is no disruption. There is no pivot. There is no, it's really a continuation of what we have built from day one, starting from the API and then adding layers on top of our commerce layer that enables different type of experiences from websites to apps in store and also this agentic commerce way of selling and buying online.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to expand on that the unified commerce bit, which we did a podcast. I think it's earlier this year with UEI, where one of your customers and they were talking about the use of your platform to create that kind of seamless customer journey. So it'd be really useful to build on that and understand where within that kind of on-channel unified commerce have you seen the main focus areas this year?
Yeah. So if from one side we are getting a lot of interest for the agentic commerce world, customers, existing customers and prospect customers are trying to understand how they can participate in this new economy. On the other side, we are getting more and more interest also in the POS, in our POS solution, for example. So it may sound two opposite direction. One is remove the humans from the loop and make everything autonomous through AI agents. On the other side, people still like to meet other people, fortunately, and have a direct relationship and buy in person in the physical store. So this really creates this end-to-end, this unified backbone. And we are seeing again both, both parts of the story that are maybe again it makes sense. On one side, we are looking at the most automatic shopping journey. On the other side, we are looking at the more traditional human by human interaction. And I think again, I'm very bullish on the fact that agentic commerce will revolutionize commerce as we know it. But at the same time, the same way e-commerce hasn't replaced the traditional, retail and in-store commerce. I think that depending on the industry, depending on the people, everyone has their own, preferences and different type of, essentially all these channels will coexist. And so again, as commerce layer, we are trying to be more and more the layer that can support any channel, that goes from the store, online, and agentic interfaces.
Yeah, I think that's a really nice point. Is this isn't about replacement; it's about fundamentally the agentic journey is becoming another part of the overall user journey mix that you need to have customer experiences for. You need to have integrations and technology solutions and data solutions for. I think that's quite a good way to position it. And so looking at other trends that you and the team at Commerce Layer have been focusing on, agentic's obviously, I think every single person on this podcast in Q2 this year is going to be agentic as the critical one. But there are obviously broader topics as well. For example, one of the things that I've seen a lot more discussion about with my clients is around the knitting together data and smarter use of data tools and data analysis. What are you seeing? What else is there in the trends that you are focused on from a strategy point of view, from a client services point of view?
Yeah, as I said, we are keeping building this unified layer. Data are I mean, I might go back to the agentic use case, unfortunately, but like data are becoming very, very important, also because of that, because also in the content world, like the way we support, let's see, the content consumption from, and we provide this content and this data to the AI agents, is not regulated. Like, there is no clear definition of how these agents are fetching this data. And so I think it's very, very important that now brands and retailers focus on structuring their data, potentially not to expose and only to like build some marketing initiatives and to create this content for the people who see it and consume it, but also like this content becomes like the source of data for agents that can generate new content and generate new data for the users. So again, I'm going back to the agentic use case, but really now we are kind of all in in this, to support and to make sure we are evolving our solution to support this all the use cases that can be enabled by agentic AI.
And looking more at the product lens, I'd be interested to hear some of the like key releases, key features, functionality. Like what's been coming out, what have merchants been most like impressed by?
Well, one that is like top of mind is our promotion engine. We have always had a promotion engine from the very beginning. We started with quite simple promotion rules where you could define promotion based on the market, the order total, the customer, and so on. But then at some point we decided to introduce a new big component in our API, which is the rules engine, which is a very, very flexible engine that can take some of the functionality provided by Commerce to the next level. The first one is the promotion engine. Now with the rules engine, you can really define very, very flexible and sophisticated promotions that make Commerce Layer a first-class, like the promotion engine, a first-class citizen in the Commerce Layer ecosystem. So our customers are not potentially, looking at elsewhere to, let's say, fulfill their promotion needs because they find everything they need with Commerce Layer. And this was not necessarily true only a few months ago. Another one, which is very technical but very interesting addition, is the event stream that we added to our platform. So Commerce Layer is an API that you can consume as a REST API. Let's say, using a client in a like pool way. You can query our API for all the resources that we provide. We have a webhook mechanism that is quite flexible with retry mechanism, observability embedded, and so on. But the event stream takes some integration flows, and to the next level, especially in terms of scalability, because now we publish all changes to all our resources to an event stream hub that our customers, our developers can subscribe to and react in real time to this event stream. And also going back to the agentic commerce use case, we are building AI agents ourselves. Also in the backend of our platform. If you think of Commerce Layer as a commerce API that includes all functionality, both on the selling side, like on the front end, and also on the back end, order management, fulfillment, and so on. Everything is available as an API, and these backend agents or backend workers, can be deployed to automate some parts of the order management, of the post-purchase activities, as well as the let's say, checkout activities, something like, putting an agent to recover abandoned cars with some logic that is more sophisticated, then, I send an email to a customer if the cart is abandoned for 3 days, something, the agent is really able to recognize these patterns and so on. And on the back end, again, automating fraud checking, identifying patterns in problematic orders, with the goal of at some point, make the management of your commerce operations as automatic as possible. And these agents very often use the event stream because they need to be, very fast and real time and super scalable. So again, promotion engine, event stream, and the also agents that we are building ourselves are the three big things that we are working on.
Yeah, I love the event stream, and I love that tying in the automation with events and the ability to be a bit more segmented in things you do. And it's. I was having a conversation with a client this week about a specific use case which needs event data, but it needs the intelligence to be able to then create different user experiences based on that. And it also then requires that event data to be pushed into third parties. And it is basket abandonment. And not just sending everyone the same email is, well, actually, if you know somebody's never purchased before, why are you not sending a different email? Because you've probably got a harder barrier to get them to buy than someone who's already bought 2 or 3 times from you. And it's probably they're just not ready to commit to that product. But event stream data is so critical with automation.
Yeah. And also our metrics API, we have a metrics API that is already used to, get insights of your business and so on. We are using this metrics data, also going back to the data point, like we are using this data to, let's say, train also these agents and to provide more context, to these agents in order to become smarter in all the operations that require also the customer, order history and purchase, the purchase history of these users.
Amazing. I'm always enjoyed doing these updates for you. There's always some interesting stuff coming out of the Commerce Layer team. So, Filippo, look, thanks for taking the time again to come on to the podcast. I'm sure everyone listening would have found that interesting as well. And anyone listening, if they want to probe further or want to explore any particular like potential projects or use cases for the platform, then Filippo's contact details are on the landing page on the website. So yeah, thanks again for joining us, Filippo.
Thank you, James.
And now I'm joined by Matthias from Shopify. So warm welcome, Matthias. How are you doing?
Yeah, good, James. Excited to be here. Long-time listener, first-time guest.
I know. I can't believe we actually haven't had you. We've had so many people on from Shopify over the years. I feel really rude that we haven't got you on.
It's all good. I've had the chance to work with you, and that's more important. But yeah, no, very excited to be here today and to talk about. Well, there's a lot that has been going on over the past year, I'd say.
Yeah, there certainly is. It's not quite in Shopify world as we were talking prior to recording. So a lot of people will know you, some won't. So for those who don't know you, do you want to give people a flavour for what role you're doing currently? Because you've changed over the years, you've evolved, you've gradually progressed. It's amazing to see your journey as well. So yeah, do you want to do a summary of what your role is and what you do?
Yeah, surely. So I am the head of partnerships for Northern Europe. So that means managing over about 100 different agencies that oversee the UK, the Benelux, and the Nordics. And this is on the service side. So these are all of our partners who are actually developing and implementing Shopify on behalf of our merchants.
Yeah, amazing. And one of the reasons for everyone listening why I'm really happy to have Matthias on is as he said, we've known each other for years, but he's helped me out on loads of different projects with different clients and works across such a broad range that he has a really good handle on the e-com market generally. And I'm really looking forward to it. So this is our strategic lens on key vendors. So we got 3 key questions. Let's get into it. Number 1 is what is Shopify's take on how are you seeing the platform market evolve this year?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I was thinking about this because I think it's very different than like a few years ago. But I think what we're seeing now is it's less about platforms actually competing on features, because I think so much has become table stake. And it's actually more now about what platforms can actually deliver merchant outcomes at scale. And so as a result of this, I think we're kind of seeing 2 camps split out. One is really focused on the enterprise complexity side of things, and then the other is really focused on optimizing for merchant velocity. That middle ground is dissipating a bit. And so with this, what we're seeing, it's more like it's where are merchants really focusing and trying to bring the platform conversation for them. And there's 3 areas that I think they've started to delve into. So one of them is around, I'd say, the theme of like economics over features. It's been the case for, I think, a couple years now, but especially if you look at like enterprise and such, merchants are looking deep within their tech stack, the total cost from apps, development, payment processing, agency fees, and they're really needing to understand what that is and if it's allowing them to be faster or slower to market. So that's a really big thing we're seeing. I think another piece that is delving in a lot is the idea of AI as utility instead of novelty. So what I mean by that is, I think a year or 2 ago, there was a lot of conversations of, well, does your platform have AI? But now the conversation is very much, well, how does your AI actually help us move towards an outcome that we want or move us closer to a sale? So it's less about just getting a dashboard and actually kind of helping them move to what they want to do. And on the Shopify world, I think for us, where we've seen a really good example of this is Sidekick. Adoption numbers are probably some of the ways of showing the utility. And in Q3, it was about 750,000 merchants used Sidekick for the very first time. It was their first conversation, which is incredible. And in Q3 alone, there's over 8 million conversations that flew through it. So I think the utility of it is really growing. And then the other piece that's kind of coming into the platform conversation quite a lot is being global by default. So I think if you're a merchant in London, in Birmingham, in Manchester, Paris, Melbourne, Seattle, San Francisco, there's an expectation of the international capabilities of these platforms. And we're seeing this every single day with products that we're evolving and continuing to invest in, like Shopify Markets, Shopify Payments, built-in fulfillment capabilities, with the idea of allowing merchants to be a global brand, because I think that's where a lot of the growth is. And we've been seeing the GMV follow this quite a lot too. Actually, international GMV grew by 41% in Q3, and 49% of that was here in EMEA. So it's really exciting to see that. So I think for us, we're really focused on kind of giving our merchants the infrastructure to move fast, to experiment, and own their economies at scale. Ultimately, less time wrestling with their platform, more time building their brand.
I love that position, and you said AI's utility, because you're right, it's table stakes. The expectation is there, but the tooling has moved on, and Sidekick's a great one to pull out. I've had a lot of fun with Sidekick, and I've started showing some of my clients just ways they can just get shortcuts to find information. People forget all the time that they've set something up, they want to check something on a product, for example, or a meta field, and then they'll go in through the various navigation paths to get to the information and open up screens, whereas you just ask Sidekick. Just ask Sidekick very quickly and get the information. So I'm intrigued to see where that goes, actually. So I'm looking forward to how that evolves 2026. Now, this kind of leads me on nicely into the second question. So you've said AI is utility. That's one of the key areas you've seen the evolution. What other tech trends are you and the Shopify team focused on?
Yeah. So Toby, he was actually on a podcast a couple months ago, maybe now, and it was the Acquired podcast. And he made this really interesting statements in that it is his job, therefore Shopify's job, to live in the relative future of its customers. So for us, that's for our merchants and for our partners. And the way that we do that is the business makes, pretty well researched, but strategic bets for the relative future. And I bring that up now because I think the bets that we made are basically the themes that we kind of are seeing play out. And these are actually things that I see coming into commercial conversations like day in and day out right now. But those three are really kind of enterprise commerce and how it is changing. Secondly, it is around unified commerce. And then the third is specifically around the move to declarative commerce with AI. So I'll break them down a little bit, but I want to work backwards from the change in enterprise first, because I think the unified commerce piece and the declarative commerce piece are a big reason we're seeing this change in enterprise commerce. So we've seen that legacy SaaS companies, they have created a lot of tech debt. There's a lot of silos, I think wasted time and money. And the old way of developing point solutions, it just doesn't work in this current environment. I think if we think about all the macro, the micro, and the technology changes over the past 5 years, things are vastly moving. And then you also look at, a lot of merchants who are on their homegrown tech stack that are running into the same issue. And CTOs, they simply just can't deliver at the pace of business that they ultimately need. So we're seeing, I guess, is the theme that a lot of brands are starting to leave legacy systems in the pursuit of speed and agility. And we're seeing a pretty big momentum with that. And for us here at Shopify, we build as a platform, not as a legacy company. And as mentioned, we know what businesses need now, and we're also making strategic bets on what they're going to need in the future. And that's really important for merchants. So whether that's dealing with B2B, cross-border, in-store, we want to anticipate their needs. And for us, Shopify is about servicing all merchants, not just the enterprise. And that leads into the second piece, which is unified. And I think every retailer, and I'm sure this is coming up in your conversations too, James, is like, it's natural. I think retailers know that commerce is happening online, offline, and everywhere in between. And as a result of this, it's also kind of the natural evolution of omnichannel, because omnichannel coordinated front-end experiences, but it didn't really unify actual back-end, which is product data, sales data, customer data into a single place so that merchants are able to make use of this. But when they are, what they're seeing is, I think in practice, is they're finding huge efficiency gains because no longer are they having to handle as many integrations. There's a lot less cost and you can usually move faster. Secondly, they can really focus on their growth, whether that be through an international market or, I think more interestingly, they can look at their entire customer profile or segment in a holistic way. And that's going to directly impact how they think about their loyalty, for example. Loyalty is a whole other topic we could probably go on. And then the third is, I think, around innovation. They can start to offer experiences that typically only the largest of merchants might have been able to in the past. But if I ground it in a merchant example that I think brings it all together, there's a merchant called Waterdrop. And for any listeners who aren't aware of them, they're an Austrian-based company, and they're on a mission to make reduce the amount of plastic in the world. And the way they actually do it is they have created a small droplet that you put in your water for flavor. It might sound simple, but there's actually a lot of complexity in the business. So they have over 30 different countries that they ship to. They have over 3 million customers online and over 40 different retail stores that they're operating in. And they need all of this in one unified platform, which they're running through. So this gives them one data set for online and offline to be in sync. And this is an incredible thing. And I think this is like a use case where, this sort of unified approach can be given to anyone from an enterprise to an entrepreneur. And lastly, again, we have to come back to AI because it's really important. But where we're at now with AI as well is, I think there's a big topic that's coming around is around discovery and how we need to treat these agents and conversations in a different way than we do with SEO. And OpenAI gave some stats that I wanted to share because I think it's important to kind of look at like what's the big picture and then we can zoom in for a minute. So through ChatGPT alone, they have 2% of their 2.5 billion prompts daily are including some sort of commerce conversation. So that's over 50 million different conversations that are happening around commerce in some way. And we really believe it's our job to keep our merchants visible and relevant. So as mentioned, it's important because with AI agents, these are conversations, and the way that you need to get data into them is making sure you have reliable product data, shipping data, FAQ data, imagery. And if that needs to be set up to actually feed into these agents, it's no longer kind of just strictly around the SEO side when we think about that. So I think that Scayle is huge. And we also see just from general research that more people during the holiday season are going to be using it. I actually used AI personally because I had on this Saturday, a Secret Santa coming up with a group of people that I kind of know, but I wanted to find a better gift. OpenAI basically led me to what I ended up purchasing. So, I think we're seeing all that come around. And to I guess kind of summarize on some of the themes, what looks like sometimes smart strategy to some people, it's actually just a good technology choice we made years ago. And that's something that Toby recently said. And I think we're realizing the decisions that we made years ago positioned us pretty perfectly at this moment. But I'd say it's definitely not by accident. It was definitely by design.
And my final question on this, I'm going to kind of tweak it a little bit actually, because you've answered quite a few of the things I was thinking in terms of like business strategy and the reasons behind it. But I'd love to delve into maybe the go-to-market bit, which is, historically, I guess Shopify was renowned in small business and then SME enterprise, has more recently in the last few years expanded into enterprise and building that enterprise offering. I'd love to know where is the focus going forward? Are there specific verticals, or actually you're building out vertical specific solutions, or are you still trying to retain that positioning of a platform that's suitable for any brand in its growth journey?
Yeah, I'd say for the most part, it's still like, while we have teams that are focusing and we want to have an understanding of breadth and depth when we speak with these merchants in different verticals, because a luxury fashion merchant versus a charity business, they operate so differently. So I think we need to have an understanding of those businesses. But when it comes to the way that I'd say, developing the platform, it's still very much, we want to develop for most of our merchants most of the time. But that's really where then our partner network can really lean in and I think develop them even further. But I think for us, one of the things that we're looking at as a strategy and something we're going to focus on a lot more moving into this year, and it's kind of been something we've done for a while, is time to value. Because I think especially in the enterprise segment, we're seeing that come up quite a lot in conversations. As mentioned, like, change is pretty relentless. We've seen it in the past 5 years, and I don't think it's going to change any more so, especially with AI. It's pushing every year so much more aggressively. But in a lot of commercial conversations that I've been having, there's a lot of merchants that are stuck. And one of the things in an evaluation, and James, you've been in a lot of these, is I think there's always the option of doing nothing. Like, you stay with the status quo. And actually, we're starting to see, I think, that is causing some issues for some merchants, because while it might have been a safer option in the moment, what it actually leads to is continued kind of tech debt. They're not moving as fast as they could have. So that safe choice today is kind of like a cautionary tale for the future. And with this time to value, we've actually been doing some research with EY to understand the impact. And if any of your listeners are interested, they can just Google Shopify time to value and they can go deeply into the report. But what they actually found was is that merchants who migrate to Shopify can do so 20% faster than any other competitor. So this is like a really big area that I think we're continuing to delve into. The other one around AI, we've talked about it in a couple different ways, but the move to declarative commerce as a whole, I think, is something that we're going to have a strategy moving forward to in 2026. And so how we see that play out in practice throughout the platform right now, I'd say, is obviously Sidekick is one. You kind of mentioned how some of your merchants can use it. We have the AI store builder. So you can actually go into the front end of a site, explain the experience you want, and that it can develop the code for it. And then, of course, we're as well going to have the agentic and search side of things, and partnerships across the likes of Perplexity, OpenAI, Copilot to open that up. And lastly, the global infrastructure piece is going to continue to go a lot. 5 years ago, you had to bolt on a lot of things to, I think, get a true international setup, whether it be fulfillment, multi-currency, taxes. I think we're bringing that all together with our suite of different products. So offering that localized experience from a single platform is becoming more real. But also, Additions is coming up very soon by end of this year. So there's going to be a lot of insight, I think, to a bit more of the strategic direction of the platform that you're going to see come out and play.
Indeed, and that's a nice segue, because we are also almost broadly in parallel with this, recording a deep dive product version for editions. So for anyone listening to this episode, when that is live, we will link to it on the landing page for this episode as well. I love the fact that I do love how vendors introduce new buzzwords into the industry. So we've got update our bingo card for decorative commerce now on top of unified, cross-channel, omni-channel, and multi-channel.
Yeah, there's got to be a few. I think the other big one that we hear a lot right now, obviously, is Geo, generative engine optimization. It's leave it to our industry to do it. I do think like Geo actually is an important one, because I do think we need to have our partners and merchants thinking about like Geo versus SEO differently. Declarative commerce, I think it's more just around the move of we're moving to a space, and we see a world where it's about telling your systems what you want them to do and working towards an outcome. And that's kind of, I think, the idea around it. Yeah.
I look forward to seeing that buzzword in being adopted by more people now. It's you've got to start these new terms early so that it gets mass adoption for next year. But I'll tell you, so I really appreciate you taking time to come on. I think that's been really useful, and we love giving our audience a chance to hear directly from like the senior leadership people in the vendors themselves. And for anyone listening, contact details are on the landing page. So if anyone wants to reach out, they want to pick up any conversations or talk about any potential partnerships projects, and do reach out to Matthias. He's always a great person to chat to.
Yeah, please do. But thanks so much for having me on, James. And hope you have a good rest of the year.
And now let's turn our gaze towards Scayle Commerce Engine, and a warm welcome to Kit. And this is Kit's first time on the podcast. We've had other people previously from Scayle. So Kit, welcome to Inside Commerce.
Thanks, James. Great to be here.
And for those of our listeners who haven't come across you and what you're doing at Scayle, do you want to give a bit of an intro for your role?
Sure. Yeah, I'll give a very quick intro to who I am. So I'm the growth director for the UK here at Scayle. So responsible for helping us build out our operations here in the UK. We've got a relatively small team, but I think there's kind of a lot more opportunity for us to go and tackle and take here in the market. So really excited to be here. I'm coming from a consulting background, know lots of retailers, really excited by it to kind of help them grow in new ways through this product.
Excellent. Thanks. Really looking forward to getting into the update with you. So let's get into the first question. So this is about us hearing from the vendors how they're seeing the platform market evolve, because everyone's aware of like quadrants, there's shifts and movements, and there's new capabilities coming out and new models. How have you seen that platform market evolve, and what are the trends that Scayle is focused in on?
Sure. It's a really interesting way to start this. And actually, I think it's important to start this actually with what the customer is doing and where we see the kind of the customer market going at the moment. And honestly, right now, I think it's quite tough for lots of retailers because the customer is quite hard to find sometimes. They're less loyal. They're sometimes spending less. And then as a retailer yourself, you're often having to spend less yourself. There's kind of real constraints we see on OpEx, on CapEx, and a real kind of challenge around IT budgets in particular. So that sets down a couple of challenges, I think, for platforms right now. Firstly is on cost, right? Is how do we support our customers on OpEx and CapEx? How do we make sure that we're offering the right sort of stuff that is at the right price, and also making implementations as easy as possible? Then also how we then helping our customers build the right sort of customer experiences that really do then capture those customers who are more flighty, they're harder to get hold of. So kind of there are a couple of big themes that I see emerging from that kind of context, if you like. The first being is how do we create a feeling of simplicity for a retailer as a platform? As I said, the world out there is hard, and you have to be complicated, I think, if you're a retailer. You got to find a customer in multiple channels and multiple places at multiple times, different sorts of customers. You have to show them different things in different places, all of that fun stuff. So how do you create a setup as a platform where you can unify that approach, where you can steer everything from a single panel, single point of view, where you can look at all your channels in one place, all your markets one place, but then also be different in those channels, be different in those markets in a way that speaks to the customer you know exists there. That's, I think, kind of that's the first big piece. The second piece is then flexibility. Within that sense of unification, of simplicity, you need to be able to change. again, the market moves extremely fast. Social media is making things move even faster. We need to be able, as a retailer, you need to be able to trade. You wake up on a Monday morning and the world has changed since you got let the office on Friday. How can you respond to things as quickly as possible if your platform doesn't let you do that? So we really want to be able to not just let you kind of innovate and move quickly, but flexibility to us also means how do you then bring in best of breed solutions where you want to. So it's not just about having a standard set capability that you constantly use. Is if you decide you want to differentiate in a certain way, how can you bring that capability in as quickly as possible, as easily as possible, and then still steer it from a single place, still be able to operate in a unified way whilst also being flexible. As a third piece, which we all talk about, which is AI, right? Customers are customers are a great example. Customers are searching a different way. We were talking with some of the Zalando team the other day, and they were saying that they're seeing their search terms. Customers are starting to just use kind of organic, not organic is the wrong word, but kind of more conversational search on the site. And if you're not set up for that, then customers are just not going to see what they expect to see. They just particularly Gen Z now see a search bar and they think it's ChatGPT. So how are you responding to that? Firstly, in these kind of really tactical ways, but also more holistically, more broadly. We're all talking about agentic commerce, but I think actually the big trend we need to get through first is simply AI orchestration. Any retailer will have multiple models running at different, across different parts of the business that look at different bits of data. How do you make sure they're all looking at the right kind of data altogether? How do you make sure that your pricing algorithms are speaking to your promotion algorithms, to your personalization algorithms, to everything else, to be able to then create a single experience for a customer that makes sense? That's probably, I think, the first barrier before we then get to kind of doing all the fun stuff in e-commerce. We can talk about that bit of that later, perhaps, but I think there are kind of some initial things we have to get right first as well. And then the final piece is really customer engagement. Is what's the site of the future? That's the big trend that we're kind of starting to see, is that everyone's kind of cracked the transactional sites, and frankly, they all look the same. It doesn't matter which platform you have, who's designed the site, and everything. There's a very similar look and feel to most e-commerce sites now, and that's because we've optimized it extremely well. They are great at taking a customer and converting them through a pretty simple journey. But again, we're seeing Gen Z in particular interact with these sites in a very different way. They're used to using, firstly, everything is done through mobile now. We're releasing some research quite soon that talks about this, that kind of shows how different cohorts interact with e-commerce. So if you have a group of people who are mostly mobile led, who are used to frankly curated content, your standard transactional site doesn't work in the same way. And that actually speaks a little bit to why I think we're seeing some of these kind of these broader traffic conversion challenges in the market. So again, the big theme that we kind of really focus on is how do we firstly make the standard transactional site better? So things like how do we personalize more of it? How do we work with our CMS partners? How do we optimize our own boilerplate storefronts to make sure that you can personalize those parts of it and also kind of make it feel more dynamic? But then, and we again, kind of when we talk about the future, let's talk about this in more detail, but there's a really big question around what are the new experiences we can create on our website? How do we build out things like kind of proper edits or curated for you sort of pages that really allow a brand or retailer to engage a customer in a new way that actually may not create a conversion on that day, but it builds that loyalty, it builds that affinity with the brand, and it should grow CLV over time.
Interesting. And in terms of like overall strategic direction, because the background to Scayle is being the technology spun out of like a multi-billion European retailer, being enterprise grade, omni-channel, has like PIM capable. There's lots of like deep functionality. It's something that's typically initially targeted larger retailers, like 50, 100 million plus.
Yeah.
Is the strategic direction travel in terms of like addressable market and verticals you're working with, is it consistent or is that shifting, evolving? Are you seeing different growth areas at the moment?
The answer to that is honestly yes and no. So I think yes. I mean, it would be wrong to say that we don't make tons of sense in fashion enterprise, because that's our heritage and we've built an extremely strong offering for that. But also, if you look at some of our wins this year, with the likes of Netto, for example, there's clearly a demand for that core set of capability that sits beyond just the kind of pure enterprise fashion world. What I would say though is that enterprise, I think, is still very much the kind of consistent theme through all of this. And kind of with that, the complexity that an enterprise brings. So when we think about our strategy, it may not be kind of always fashion, although that's our heritage. That's where we kind of, really kind of see, I think, kind of the biggest opportunities. It's really, and all that stuff I was saying, particularly around the new front end, the new experiences, that is clearly where I think we will be differentiating as much as possible. I think there are some super strong use cases beyond that, for the right businesses where they want to handle complexity in a way that simplifies as much as possible. And then, sorry, I can go on more about kind of the rest of us kind of broader strategic pillars if you like. And
please.
That's what I've been focusing.
Please do.
And I can kind of really get back to those four themes, feel like I was talking about earlier, right? So on the simplicity front, it's really about making sure that kind of, you mentioned this kind of, that core set of capabilities. We have a really broad set of capabilities that we bring. We want to make sure that foundational core is as strong as possible. It's kind of the old cliche about German engineering, right? It should work every single time. It needs to be completely stable. We never want anything to break, and we want that stability to be across everything we offer. So it's not just your shop front, it's, as you said, your PIM, your OMS, your search, your promotions, everything needs to be as strong as we can possibly make it. So we really are, as a one part of strategy, is just doubling down on all that, making sure that everything continues to work, but also improves over time. We're not going to be saying that we can build the best of everything in the world. I think that that would take a normal amount of money. But to be able to do everything to a level of at least 80% of the best in class means that we can offer somebody actually everything they would usually need out of the box, and they have very specific different use cases they're trying to kind of fulfill. So that's sorry, is there a question?
No, that's it. That's
So that simplicity on flexibility, it's then about building more integrations, right? So again, we you don't have to take all of our capability. In fact, most of our customers are taking a lot of our capability, but there's always something where they want to differentiate. So it's about making sure that we have those integrations not only pre-built, but also then really kind of not just kind of, what's the word, simple, but actually in a way that's native into the app. So when you are using a third party, it should still feel like part of the Scayle experience. It shouldn't be that you feel like you need to change multiple services to achieve a single change in the website. It should be all natively handled through the panel. So that's a big piece that we're working on, is making sure that all of the best in breeds of third parties out there, we have those strong integrations with them, and that it all works. It makes sense for a business user. Again, my background is helping commercial teams try and trade in these sorts of instances. The minute you have to set things up in multiple places, everything breaks down. You can't wake up on a Monday, see that trade was bad, and do something right away to fix it. It takes you 3 or 4 days. So our objective is to make sure that you can do that. You can wake up on Monday, see something doesn't work, suffer a promotion, and it's gone. It's out the door. And that should be, whether you're using our engine or somebody else's, it should all feel that same way. Then on AI, again, a huge strategic theme for us. There's so much you can be doing. We're, doing all the kind of classic things like building out the right link through Ecommerce, so that we're kind of, as that grows over time, our customers will be able to natively plug into ChatGPT, for example, or Perplexity or wherever else, and be able to kind of make sure that products are visible there. I think more broadly, they're actually kind of an interesting piece for us is more around our partnerships with our customers, the way we kind of work with them, not just on the tech, but more broadly on their strategy and have support them. The big piece, I think, for agentic commerce right now isn't so much your connections to those to those services. It's more actually how you think as a business about getting your products information out there. It's all about contextual information about that product that really kind of spurs whether you appear on ChatGPT early or not. So helping our customers think through, how are you getting your product details onto Reddit, for example? How are you making sure that customers are talking about you in online spaces that ChatGPT sees, is a really, really important piece that we're talking about with lots of people, and making sure that they understand the full nuance of that, so they're optimizing not just their website, but actually the rest of their content to support their growth. The final piece in AI, there's lots more I can talk about for hours on it, but kind of the big piece that actually I think excites me most is actually give me two things if you like. There's one piece which, as I mentioned earlier, the orchestration is how do you make sure you have that kind of single place where you're kind of, it's the integrations piece again, right? To be able to make sure that your personalization algorithms that create your customer segments can then speak directly to the right promotion algorithm or to the right pricing algorithm if you're doing things like VIP pricing. So being able to see and to be able to control in one place, okay, this is customer segment A, and be able to then attribute different things to them within the panel becomes crucial, because otherwise you end up having multiple systems talking across purposes. That's a critical thing we're thinking about how we can kind of show more clearly. And then finally, agents inside the business. This is actually the most exciting one. How do you build some, and this is kind of something that we're focusing on a lot at the moment, is creating a kind of your chief commercial officer who sits next to you on the panel effectively. That looks across all of your channels and says, everything is granular from this pair of jeans is doing really, really well in this marketplace. You need to add more stock in these places, or we should assort this marketplace differently because we're seeing that our own .com is going wild in this category, and we're seeing customers moving from there into this marketplace. Let's make sure it's sorted correctly. All those sorts of big decisions that sit across the full landscape of a retailer. That's all data that Scayle can see when it's fully integrated. So building that co-pilot to sit alongside you to help you trade, help you make data decisions, is a super exciting piece that I'm really looking forward to us building out further.
Yeah, I'm not surprised the focus on this has been AI. Pretty much every vendor I'm speaking to, AI, agentic commerce, etc. I'm not, and that's going to persist for several updates now going forward. So coming back to product, it would be really useful outside of the AI space. What are a couple of the key, like, big areas where Scayle's either released something new or enhanced existing capability in the last 6 months?
Yeah, so there are a couple of big pieces that is worth us talking about. I think that the first piece, which chimes with what we're talking about on the storefront, is the storefront itself, right? So if firstly, we now have a full hosting service for that, which again adds the full stability piece and make sure that everything, all of your scaling needs, everything is handled by us, and it takes that pressure off you and your dev teams. But then in terms of kind of, I guess, the more exciting stuff is that the full boilerplate's now kind of ready and available for customers, which is kind of relatively recent launch. This kind of the big thing here is that it really reduces your complexity and your time to value. Much easier to manage. And then from an implementation perspective, and again, when we're talking at the start about making sure that CapEx is lower, having a ready-made boilerplate storefront makes everything faster, much cheaper. What it also does is it lays the foundations for a lot more innovation in the future. So kind of, it may not be a kind of, right now as a writer is the transactional site that I spoke about. It's, you'd recognize it as an e-commerce website. It's fantastic, but you would know what it is. What we now have is the kind of foundations to build something much more exciting. And we can release stuff extremely fast because it's built on a modern architecture. So with Zalando now being part of the equation, we have access to not just their financial firepower, but their development firepower. So all of the things that they are building for their websites are things that we can now build onto our boilerplate. So that's everything from kind of optimizing your standard transactional templates, things like virtual try-on, augmented reality to kind of view larger products in a room, for example. Things like chatbots, all that sort of fun stuff. Those are all things that we can now test at scale across Zalando and About You. That's 60 million customers over all of Europe, but I think about a quarter of the European shopping public, basically. So we can test those and build them into the template for all of our customers. That's the first piece. And then also, again, Zalando are really leading the way, I think, in this new, more experiential, discovery-led front end at the same time. So building things like, I don't know if you've looked at their app recently, but they have, lots of wonderful things like edits. There's a kind of a properly kind of for you created section as well. That is all stuff that we will then be starting to kind of feed into our template over time, based off their testing, based on their learning at the scale that they operate at.
Yeah, I mean, it's fascinating to see the size of the group with Zalando, About You, that the sheer volume through the infrastructure is quite insane.
Yeah, and that's also why I was saying earlier, right, that fashion is always going to be where we want to play the most. Just with that firepower, it means that we have so much more data on that segment. But as we learn there, as we grow there, as we build an extremely sophisticated product for that segment, there'll be so many other places that also then start to make sense based on their complexity or the certain use cases that they have.
Yeah.
A couple of other areas that are probably worth mentioning as well, kind of within the broader releases, kind of partially within the front end piece is checkout, where we've really kind of done a lot of work to, right? Checkout is one of those frustrating areas where you instantly see conversion fall away if your checkout's not configured correctly. And a lot of our customers have challenges in that their checkout's either kind of managed by somebody else, or it takes a lot of development time to tweak it. So we've now built a fully configurable checkout. So that means that you can not just change something on a screen and then go check on the website. You can change and review live in the panel. And that's kind of full control over basically everything you see on the screen. And part of that's through this thing called dynamic slots, where you actually can pull in information from other services. So this is fantastic for things like cross-sell and upsell. You can have a product recommendation algorithm running in the background where you can, it very, very quickly set up a link to that says, this basket has these 3 things in it. Here are the 3 or 4 products most likely to be added to that basket. Let's service them here in that part of the checkout. You can change where that's shown as well. You can A/B test it, right? And then say, actually, it makes more sense if we put recommendations here in the checkout flow rather than here in the checkout flow, all that sort of good stuff. That's that flexibility that I was talking about earlier, is stuff that you can kind of build with this. Also on discovery more broadly, there's also a kind of a set of improvements we've released to our search. So again, talking about building that really stable core where all of the different components that we offer are as strong as they possibly can be. They may not be a true Ferrari in the sense of being kind of the best of breed, but they will really solve the majority of use cases that people want them to cover. On our search, we've been really working on making sure that we can return a combination of strict results. So if you search for a red dress, all of the red dresses, but also a more relaxed set of fallbacks. And so if that kind of strict set of results doesn't show many products, what are the relaxed fallbacks that make most sense to sit alongside it? So in the red dress example, there may be other dresses that have some red in them, or maybe not red, but kind of have a similar look and feel or whatever. Being able to kind of make sure the customer gets a full PLP that's not kind of too bare or unfamiliar is a really, really important part of the merchandising process.
Yeah, so it's been a quiet period for Scayle, right?
There's a lot going on. And yeah, as I was saying, that there will be a lot more to come, I think. But given that combination of all of that development firepower, all the new financial firepower we now have, plus the really modern architecture, it means that our ability to build stuff and release it is only getting better. There should be a lot that we can start to kind of throw out there over time, based on all of that. That's now kind of all of that machine that's now working.
And for anyone listening, if you want to probe Kit further on any of this, or get into specific use cases and how Scayle works with it, his contact details on the landing page on insidecommerce.fm. Do reach out, or you can connect via LinkedIn. But Kit, really appreciate you taking the time to come on the podcast and give us that update into the strategic vision and activity of Scayle.
It's been an absolute pleasure, James.
You're listening to the Inside Commerce podcast, hosted by experienced consultants James Gerd and Paul Rogers. Inside Commerce is your fast track to digital knowledge, featuring interviews with leading e-commerce retailers, industry thought leaders, and the C-suite of key tech companies to explore the latest in digital strategy, customer experience, and tech. Discover what the latest trends really mean and get practical advice based on experience to help fine-tune your e-com strategy and tech stack. Follow us on LinkedIn and reach out to James or Paul if you'd like to discuss an e-commerce project. We hope you enjoy the latest episode.